Welcome back to Hoops HD, everybody. It is Monday, December 8th. I know that it's a
Woohoo!
very busy night on college hoops tonight. Thrilling Southern Texas and Mississippi Valley K-State games and the like. But
Why aren't they
this is
studying
our
for
Hoops HD report.
exams?
I don't know what's going on, but this is our Monday Night Hoops HD report. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. We got John Teitel and David Griggs up here. Joby Forza right below me, John Salika, and Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org back with us as well. Full cast here, more or less, for our show, and we've got a lot to go to here, a lot of exciting games, but I thought I would start out with the conference whose commissioner this week said that they are the second best basketball conference in the entire nation, only behind the NBA. That's the Big 12 conference. And he might be right, actually, so far this year, actually.
Starkey, yeah.
Um, but
Wow.
Mr.
If they could,
Titel,
yeah, they need to
I'm
kick
second.
Cincinnati. They need to kick Cincinnati out of the league if they want that to be true.
Yeah, well, there's some bad. There's got to be
Wow.
somebody bad in the NBA, I think,
Yeah.
somewhere. But they may need to kick Utah out too. But that's But anyhow, Titel, I think I'd start with you because you are an Arizona guy, and one of the big stories this week, of many big stories in this conference, was your Arizona team. Uh, Big win over Auburn by, what was it, almost 30 points this weekend?
Yes, if you want to do me a favor and highlight the number in their AP poll column as well, that will make my day.
Not the
There
coaches poll
it is,
column, just
number
the
one.
AP.
It's been 722 long days, Chad, since my Wildcats were number one in the nation. We dropped out of the top spot back in December 18th, 2023, after losing to Purdue a couple of days before the poll came out that day. Now we're back on top thanks to, ironically, Iowa State's big win last Saturday at Purdue. Coach Tommy Lloyd has made three Sweet 16s in his first 4 years in Tucson. He's 8-0, 29-point win over Auburn. They get the rest of this week off before continuing their SEC tour when they play Alabama in Birmingham on Saturday. As you
Wow.
might expect, the key's been on offense, 53.1 shooting from the field, number three in the nation, and it's a total team effort. You get your senior point guard, Jaden Bradley, running the show, a trio of freshman starters in Koa Pete, Braden Burries, and Ivan Karchenkov combining to score 35 a game, and amazingly, Toby Awaka averaging a double-double off the bench and playing just 19 minutes a game. I will have much more to share about their former players in my final thought.
Okay, but that's probably the second biggest story maybe out of this conference, Rocco. I think the biggest one was what Iowa State did
Oh my
going to
God.
Purdue on Saturday. The probably the most impressive win anybody's had all season, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you adjust for the true road factor and the fact that Iowa State broke a lot of records at Mackey Arena, I think that's the largest non-conference loss in the history of Mackey Arena for Purdue. And a big reason why is they really frustrated Purdue early and often. Braden Smith, 6 turnovers. That was a key number in the game. The All-American steady hand was not so steady against this Cyclone defense. And then you have the elite shooting of Milan Momcilovic. I mean, that's a guy that at 6'8", 225. He's got such long arms. You can't really get in his face, even with a shot in it, a hand up. He can outstretch you and shoot over you, and he's a big time weapon for Iowa State. And Joshua Jefferson, Chad, right now, second best player in the country per Ken Palm from an efficiency standpoint. He's had multiple double digit assist games, double digit rebound games, and he's never scored less than 11 points like he did against Purdue in a game. So they can beat you with a ton of different weapons, especially with Timin Lipsey fully healthy now. Iowa State looks the part, and they're just doing what they always do in November and December. As I said earlier, they're now 53-5 in these 2 months since TJ Otzelberger was hired 5 years ago.
Uh, this is worth sort of examining. I know we have some historians on the panel here. From memory, I cannot remember a win this impressive ever. By that, I mean the number one team on their own home court getting blown the hell out. I'm sure it's happened. I'm just not thinking of an example off the top of my head. But this is on paper, is it going to be the win that gives a team the most equity? Maybe, maybe not. Arizona also has a high equity win at UConn. But
Yeah.
considering how good I think we think Purdue is, and how good Purdue has proven themselves to be themselves, the win in Alabama, for Iowa State to go in there and win like that is the most impressive singular performance I can ever remember ever. during the regular season.
Tell your stat. This was the largest non-conference home loss by the AP number one team ever.
Wow.
There have
Right.
been a lot of people I've seen on social media calling it the greatest win ever by a team based on all the stats you just put forth. That's a very strong statement, but that's a very strong argument, I think.
Yeah.
Uh, Momcilovic, by the way, I made the change there. He's 37 of 69 in the season for three-point range,
Yeah,
53.6%.
it's crazy. Yep.
He's
Pretty wild.
54.2 for the field. He's not. It's basically his regular shooting percentage from three. It's ridiculous. Um,
It
uh,
really is.
there, there's several other stories we can go to in this conference. Joby, do we maybe want to talk about Houston? We almost forgetting about them. They lose one game, and they're just like a non-story. But they took care of Florida State pretty easily this weekend.
Yeah, and they did their ACC. Unlike some of the others in the conference, they took care of their ACC competition, having won two straight against. I'm not necessarily sold on Florida State, but hey, Houston did what they're supposed to do. I actually like the Notre Dame win more. To be honest, I think Notre Dame actually is has got a little fight, and is doing what Houston does, and they're going to be in the tournament. They're going to be a protected seed. The question is when the Big 12 regular season starts, how will they stack up with two teams that we've already mentioned that have really stepped out of conference, really accelerated themselves to the front of the pack with Iowa State and Arizona? Can Houston match that? We know defensively they can. They do it every year, but can they offensively keep pace with those teams when they match up against them? I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them to do so.
Stalika, I guess there's a couple of teams we could discuss in this conference, but Kansas, an interesting week. They lose the home game to UConn, but they bounce back with the border war win over Missouri.
Yeah, and this was a team that wasn't exactly running out the clock at the end of the game against Missouri either. They were piling on towards the end of the
They
game,
were.
very clearly sending a message that they were pissed off about last year's result. So definitely not the same Kansas team that we saw last year.
Um,
Yeah, and maybe
Ka-
from the
Ka-
bat. Go ahead, Griggs. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say Kansas checking in at a very disappointing 19th in the poll. I believe that makes them the seventh lowest ranked team in the conference.
Yeah, they are
So
behind
this,
several teams. Texas
yeah,
Tech up there above them, BYU up there above them. Uh,
man, get it together, Kansas. I know it's just a testament to just how strong this league is.
I guess the question though is Griggs was actually Baylor.
Yeah.
We thought this team was pretty good, but they lose the game at Memphis, but Memphis really hadn't been beating anybody up until that game.
No, Memphis, I mean, we'll get to them a little bit later. Really disappointing, at least on the surface. I mean, they were just 3-4 coming into that game, and they'd lost some games to teams that you wouldn't consider to be tournament caliber teams. Um, I don't think Baylor is so poorly positioned to where they can't turn it around over the break and make a run and get themselves inside the bubble. But if you're asking me to assess what they've done so far, it's pretty far it's pretty much less than what a lot of other teams in the league have done. Uh, what's their most notable win? Is San Diego State sort of
Sa-
another
San
disappointing?
Diego State or
Yeah,
Washington or Creighton. I mean, they do have one
yeah,
more non-conference test, but it's not till February 14th against Louisville.
yeah.
So don't forget that. That's actually might be an important game for them.
Yeah, and their schedule may have let them down some. Memphis underperforming, San Diego State certainly underperforming, Creighton dealing with injuries. I think that at the end of the day, they're going to be there. I just think Scott Drew's a good coach and that this is a talented roster and that going into the winter break when the the practice restrictions go away, this might be a team that really comes on strong. I know that this is more of a hunt because we haven't seen evidence of it yet. It's more of a hunch, but I do think that there will be a point to where Baylor kicks it into the gear and gets themselves there.
Uh, Rocco, Oklahoma State was not a team that a lot of people expected much out of this year. Nice win at Northwestern. Solid win this week over Grand Canyon. Start time paying a little attention here to the Cowboys.
Yeah, 9-0, man. And the Northwestern win was in Chicago. And so basically a road game in terms of travel and geography, and same with this Phoenix win against the local Lopes. And I also thought, Sam Houston came into the game earlier last week on Tuesday, really hot. Sam Houston had the halftime lead, And Oklahoma State did a nice job adjusting there and getting out of the gates of the second half in the right way. They were actually down 7 at halftime. So they've been through some adversity. Oklahoma State's playing lightning fast, seventh fastest tempo in America, which is no surprise under Steve Lutz. But I think the depth of athletes that they're bringing, I think the last thing that remains to be seen is how they'll stack up with the upper echelon Big 12 when we get that far. They'll have another test with their local rivals, the Sooners. They'll actually have be the favorite in that game. A welcome surprise, I guess, from what we thought preseason. And if they can get through that, then they just have Kansas City, CSUF, and Bethune-Cookman before the Big 12 opener at Texas Tech. But they have a chance to enter that Texas Tech game in January 13-0.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think anybody saw that coming this year,
Yeah.
this out of the Cowboys.
Pretty amazing. Yeah.
Uh, Upcoming schedule for the week here. Joby, here's the schedule. I mean, one of the bigger games is tomorrow night's BYU Clemson in the front end of the Jimmy V Classic. But then there's the Bedlam game, Arizona, Alabama. There's a lot of good games here this week, actually.
Yeah, that Arizona Alabama game is really intriguing. Both teams have gone out of their way to schedule tough. They go out of they do not shy away from, strong competition. So that is a Elite Eight level game that's just staring you in the face between two teams that are already battle tested. Arizona coming out obviously ahead in all of their games, but Alabama has gotten a few, has a scalp or two. So that's going to be fun. I think that along with the Bedlam game that I think Oklahoma State, as pointed out, should be the favorite. I'm the ACC guy. BYU should take care of Clemson. I think Clemson's a little bloated, right now, but we'll see.
Yeah, we got the
Kansas,
Cyhawk
though,
game.
I think NC State could take out Kansas, though.
Yeah, the Cyhawk game there that you. Oh, sorry, Joey, that you
Go
just
ahead.
highlighted. I was just going to say. I mean, I think we all know that this is a rivalry. I don't think I realized what the temperature of this rivalry was. I forget. It may have been 10 years ago now when Iowa State was ranked second, was playing at home, beat an unranked Iowa team, and stormed the court. I was just like, wow. That one's pretty intense.
A couple of the good ones here Saturday, Texas Tech, Arkansas, and Sleeka. Did you think Kansas at NC State would be almost like two teams really, really needing a win at this point of the season? Maybe more so on NC State's end of things, but wow.
Well, after what they did in Maui, NC State better have a little more sense of urgency. But as we'll get to in the ACC, it's not going to be a cakewalk like it was last year. So NC State better get started.
Well, let's just jump right over to the ACC, Joby, because other than what the Big 12 did this week, I was very impressed with the ACC. Yes, they lost the ACC SEC Challenge 9-7, but they lost 14-2 last year. So I thought I was mildly surprised with what the ACC did this year. This week.
and while the ACC SEC Challenge was pretty much a push, the weekend is really where the ACC came down and looked great. Yeah, ignore Pitt. The no, the weekend was. I mean, look at all those really strong wins though of Power Five versus Power Five. The ACC, as I mentioned, I like Notre Dame this year.
That was a great win for Notre Dame.
Good win. Louisville, Indiana, and Virginia Duke, and Virginia Dayton, Duke, Michigan State. These are really good wins. Virginia Tech's win over George Mason. Excellent win. Because
SMU A&M, throw that one in there.
Yeah, that was a good win, yeah.
And so I'm not saying, the ACC is the best conference there, but they're certainly legitimately part of that group of top five that, we are used to. No one's going to say, well, they're kind of fifth out of five. No, they're a very good conference. You do well in this conference. You get above 500 in this conference. As long as you did decent out of conference, you are in the discussion for a bid. That was not the case last year.
And Joby, let me ask you this, or Rocco, being two kind of metrics heavy guys, when you see teams that maybe aren't necessarily top 40 or inside the bubble that are still performing, if not at a high level, at a higher level than we thought they would be. Cal 8-1, and it isn't all home by wins. They have some at least decent wins in there. Stanford, I know that they lost, but they're still performing at a level that's better than I think a lot of people expected. There's a lot of. I think that in addition to the high caliber wins you've mentioned, there's a lot of teams that we thought that are getting decent wins that a year ago weren't even getting those.
Well, there's 7 teams. I'm sorry to jump in, Rocco. I'll let you go,
No, go ahead.
but 7 teams are in the top 30. That
Yeah.
means that's high end top, top quartile. 7, and we're getting near the end of the out of conference schedule, so that's going to be where teams are for the most part. So that is a big difference. When last year you had Duke and
Yeah, Duke.
Clemson and North Carolina maybe was around 30. That was it, so.
Yeah, and to your point, you look at the strength of resume number right now as well. There's actually 10 teams in the top 36, which is really amazing. And Syracuse is not far behind at 47. So again, I don't know how long that lasts for. Notre Dame obviously has the serious concern with Marcus Burton going down in the last game. But the fact that Notre Dame goes to TCU and wins is so huge. Virginia Tech had a great week. They were the first team to beat George Mason. You have Miami going to Ole Miss and winning. You had
Yeah, Miami's another team that's
yeah,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
and the Cavs had a tremendous. Your Cavs had a tremendous week, handling Dayton and then winning their challenge game as well. So I thought the meat of the conference and Wake Forest as well, beating West Virginia in the capital of West Virginia, Charleston special game. That was a big stop the bleeding win for the Deacs. So you look at those middle of the pack teams, those ones that could really swing the conference, and so many of them stepped up.
Yeah.
Yeah, Titel, Griggs mentioned that Cal team, and that win over Pacific. Don't sneeze at that. Pacific has some good ratings so far this season.
Yeah,
They do.
I mean, Coach Mark Madsen, which still sounds weird to say about a guy who played for Stanford, lost 19 games in each of the past 2 years. He's had a great run over the past 2.5 weeks. Single-digit wins, but still count over UCLA and Utah and Pacific to improve to 8-1. The only loss by 3 at Kansas State. When you consider they trailed by 25 in the first half, I think it's actually a good loss. And 3 cupcakes ahead means they should be 11-1 when hosting Columbia on the 21st. But the Lions could be 10-1 at that point. It should be a heck of a game. And the key is
I think I'll look to the 30th, Titel. No offense, but I think I'll look to the Louisville
Hey,
game. But
Cal lost to Cornell last year. I wouldn't take that for granted at all.
well, yeah. If they bloat that record out and they have Louisville coming to town, I know the students aren't there, but I hope that there's a lot of electricity around this team. It's better than they've been in a while, and that's the biggest showcase they would have had in a while.
Go ahead, Titel.
just to wrap up, the key has been their transfers, not from mid-majors moving up, but from power conference going laterally. Day-Day Ames from Virginia, Justin Pippen from Michigan, Chris Bell from Syracuse, combining for 48 points a game, and the 3 of them are shooting 43% behind the arc. Unbelievable offense.
Wow, that is.
Yeah, one of the other stories we really didn't even touch on yet, Sleek, I think one of the biggest surprising wins in the ACC SEC Challenge was Syracuse knocking off Tennessee after they almost took down Houston out in Vegas.
Yeah, I was going to say there were a few close calls that the Qs had out in Vegas during the Players Era Invitational, and you can see their strength of schedule 21. That's nothing we almost never saw during Boeheim's tenure, where they were usually playing like half the teams in New York State. In
They would have the
Carrier
21st
Dome.
strength of schedule in New York State.
Yeah.
I mean, their toughest out of conference was when we clapped when they played Colgate.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah, I feel like we may be finally getting to a point where is Syracuse going to be at least a team that annoys us during March because they somehow hang around the bubble, but may actually have a case to get in this season. It would be the first time since, at least since Adrian Autry has taken over as head coach.
Their net's right on the edge of top quartile for a road for a road win, and then you combine that. I think you look at Ken Palm, that they obviously aren't going to get in with that, but the conference this year gives them opportunities, as you point out, John, where they all of a sudden get a scalp from a North Carolina or something, and whoa, it's not outrageous to be talking about if they perform. It's that team I was telling you about this year, a 12-8 Syracuse team in conference, I think has a real shot and just might go dancing depending on how many quality wins that 12 are.
We haven't really even discussed it, Rocco, and I think we should. The number 3 team in the nation, the Duke Blue Devils. Not only did they beat Florida, They then go to Michigan State and get the win. I mean, that this was a hell of a week for them. But here we are. They're the sixth team we've discussed in this conference.
Right. Well, I think unfortunately and fortunately, when you're Duke, the expectations are so great that it really doesn't surprise anyone that they got through the week 2-0, but they did sweat in both games, so that was probably really good for them to be able to learn through winning. And I thought, the Florida game, they had a 15-point lead. The Gators really stormed back and didn't quit, and they really had to come through the big bucket at the end to hang on. And then in the Michigan State game, they were down for a lot of the first half, continued to chip away and took control late in the second half. So both wins really really good. The road Michigan State helps give them that elite road win that they can build off of resume wise to eventually be a one seed. They probably will be too dominant to not be a one seed anyway, but that helps give some insurance in case they hit any kind of rough patch during the year. But yeah, I mean, Cam Boozer's just crazy, amazing. 15 rebounds in that Michigan State game, four of them offensive, five assists. Didn't even have 20 points, didn't need to. And how about Duke's overall ownage of Tom Izzo? Now 15-3 against Tom Izzo, 3-0 in the Breslin Center. Duke's never lost there. So again, Michigan State, of course, probably a cut below Duke program wise, but likes to think of themselves in that caliber, that blue blood caliber. But Duke clearly making it obvious that the Blue Devils are a different standard.
Upcoming schedule for this week, Stalika. Let me ask you here. We mentioned already that Clemson BYU game tomorrow night. Memphis Louisville on Saturday, a little old school Conference USA matchup here coming on. Maybe
I would
Metro
say
Conference.
yeah, old school Metro. If you
Metro,
want to go
yeah.
back a little bit further, I'm also looking at SMU, who's still got a top 30 net. You got a somewhat tricky game against LSU coming up here.
Yeah, I'm not certain where that game's being played. It is a neutral court game.
I think
It's
it's
at the
Dickies
Smoothie.
Arena in Fort Worth. I would have to
Okay,
double
It's actually
check.
it's actually the Smoothie King Center, New Orleans
New
Pelicans.
New
Orleans.
Orleans.
Okay,
Okay.
there should be a
Yeah.
slightly LSU favored crowd there, just slightly. But um,
I was
If
also
they're not,
going to
if
go
they're not
back
too
to
busy.
Notre Dame for a moment, where they did
yeah,
show some fight in their win against, I think it was TCU on Friday night.
Yeah.
Imagine if their football team showed that kind of fight this year.
Well, they'll
we
be able to show it in their bowl game.
Oh,
yeah. I can't wait for that Notre Dame bowl game.
I think it's called the blue and gold game.
Uh,
The Astro Bluebonnet Bowl.
But
the Whiny
hey,
Bowl.
hey, Freeman will be able to sell more protein packs, so that that's.
Let's
the
take a look at
administration wanted Christmas off.
let's take a look at the other side of the ACC SEC challenge here. Titel kind of almost the opposite of the ACC. We're not seeing what we saw last year at this time out of the SEC. We're not seeing that just conference that looks like it's just dominant over everybody. And look at all the red from just this week.
Yes, but look at some of the teams at the top, including Georgia. So
Okay,
Mike
well,
White,
okay.
Mike White has never had a losing record in his first 14 years as a head coach. But after beating the Seminoles on the road by 34 last Tuesday to get to 8-1, I think he's going to make it 15 for 15 this year. They could actually be undefeated. They blew a 10-point lead to Clemson in a 3-point overtime neutral site loss a couple weeks ago. So if they can meet Cincinnati in Atlanta this Saturday and beat the Three Cupcakes to finish out this month, they could be 12-1 when hosting Auburn in their conference opener on January 3rd. The fascinating statistical success on both offense and defense. They're almost keeping it 100 on offense. 99.9 points per game is best in the country, and leading the nation with 8.8 blocks per game on defense. One of the best backcourt name duos as well, with Blue Kane as the starter, Marcus Smurf Melender coming off the bench. If you like Blue Smurfs, this is the team for you.
Oh God, I don't even.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Ah, let's just go somewhere else after that. Rocco, um, uh, beyond Georgia, the team's had impressive weeks this week. How about this Vanderbilt team? 9-0, the only undefeated team left in the SEC. I'm a believer at this point. I'm a real believer.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that can put up 96 against St. Mary's, it's just how is that even possible? I don't know. With the way St. Mary's defends typically, but to follow that up with the big blowout over SMU, also impressive. SMU's been really good against everybody else, and Vanderbilt made minced meat out of the Mustangs. So I thought At 9-0, it really we're just waiting. We're salivating at the idea of them playing against an elite team. That probably won't happen till the Alabama game in early January. But in the meantime, they are going to go to Memphis and Wake Forest just before the Christmas holiday. They'll have a down week, of course, with finals this week. But man, they are performing at such a high level. Fifth in the country in effective field goal percentage, number two in overall offense. One of the best teams at not getting the ball stolen or their shots blocked. Just a very, very well balanced and extremely well spaced offensive juggernaut. And they're playing top 30 defense so far. And I think that's a great formula for them to not only get a protected seed long term, but advance deep into the tournament as well.
And look at those predictive metrics. High in
High
some
predictive
areas.
metrics. You just mentioning that assisted turnover ratio. They are number one in the nation in that. I mean,
There you
that's
go.
a
Yeah.
that that just shows you how good they are, not only of taking care of the ball, but getting those assists as well. Um, Joby, sorry, where else you want like to go in this conference? But
Uh, oh, you're asking Joey.
I
We need to talk about. There's a team we need to talk
LSU.
about.
That
okay,
is who I want to talk about.
yeah, you want to talk about LSU and that amazing comeback where they almost lost to a pathetically bad Boston College team? Go ahead. But they
No,
had a
but
great
their
comeback to
metrics
seal
are
to take the
really
game.
good. This LSU team's, I'm starting to come in. Their metrics, yeah, their metrics are good, and I actually think that given where they were at the beginning of the year, I mean, I think they were. I mean, I didn't expect the two Mississippi schools to be at the bottom. I was expecting LSU and South Carolina to be like dueling it out, LSU has really upped their game from last year. They didn't slip up against BC, and maybe they'll go, over in the conference. They're only one or two, but let the guys in Baton Rouge enjoy it while it lasts. Because right now, yeah, they're a top 40 net team.
Griggs,
How
I think we
about?
got to talk about Arkansas as well.
Oh,
That win
okay.
over the win over Louisville.
Yeah. A really good one, and this is an Arkansas team that I think is if history repeats itself with John Calipari coach teams, they start off good. They start to get real good over the winter break, and they really get up to full speed around early to mid January. I've been a believer in this Arkansas team the whole year. They didn't have much in the way of notable wins, but they got one against a Louisville team, albeit at home. But kind of a convincing win. They were way ahead, and Louisville came back in that game.
It's like another team kind of in the middle of the standings here. Bad week for Tennessee. Not only the Syracuse loss that we addressed earlier, they followed that up with the loss to Illinois by 13 points. Cause for concern for Rick Barnes' team.
It was not a good weekend for the SEC overall. It wasn't just isolated to Tennessee there. I think this was actually the opposite of last year, where Tennessee actually ended up winning in overtime, I want to say, on the road against Illinois. So a little bit of a payback factor right there. But this thing for Tennessee, at least, they're still 1-2 against the top tier. And when that win is against Houston, that's nothing to sneeze at right there.
Yeah, I think right now that the Houston win is if they had lost that Houston game,
Yeah.
we'd be sounding the alarms here on this team right now.
Now, if they end up losing at home to Louisville, sure, there'll probably be some more alarm bells for Vols Nation.
I think they're
They
going
will
to have
definitely
a
be the
hard time
underdog.
beating Louisville, even though they're at home. Louisville's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
And that's
mean,
another revenge game from last year, too, where Tennessee pounded the Cardinals at the Yum Center.
Yeah.
and Louisville's already
Pounded.
proven on the road against Indiana, which I would call that on the road. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
It's on the
but we'll
road.
get to Indiana.
Yeah.
How good is
Pounded.
Indiana?
Right.
But
True, but Louisville had no problem. And so
yeah.
yeah, that's going to be a tough game for the Vols. And that'll be a
Right.
fun one to watch.
Okay. Chad, I think we need
Yeah.
to discuss Kentucky
Ooh.
real quick. So this was a team with high expectations,
Well,
you know,
this is kind of that Louisville, almost that Tennessee profile if they lost the Houston game,
yeah,
because their only losses are great teams, but they
but
haven't beaten anybody.
yeah, their only wins have been home bye games, and they didn't just lose to Gonzaga. They lost spectacularly It was kind of shocking considering how familiar you would think Mark Pope was with Gonzaga. Uh, they just haven't looked good at all. Yeah, they've been losing to good teams, but they have not looked good in those losses. Now, Kentucky fans, a great fan base, they completely understand that this is a building process, and they are being incredibly patient with this team. Of course, I'm kidding. They are outraged.
Rocco, and watching some of that Kentucky game though,
Oh my
it looked like
God.
Owe just didn't seem to was hard in the game either. It seemed like I just saw a lot of players there that said like looked like they were going through the motions, and that's a bad sign.
Yeah, especially on the defensive end.
Yeah.
I think that's where they were just giving up easy basket after easy basket, and the game got out of hand quickly. 21-5, Chad, out of the gates. So, I mean, it was, yeah, and it was kind of sad because that whole game was an NIL game in Nashville where everybody benefited from it on both Kentucky and Gonzaga's end. And Mark Pope was out there on the night before doing all these promos at the Broadway bars. Was not a good look for them the next night. So yeah, there's a big pill to swallow there. Obviously, they're still waiting on a couple guys to get back from health. The big one being Acquaintance, the transfer from Arizona State. Big man should make a big difference if and when he gets back. But they did get Jalond Lowe back for this game. He at least gave him 14 minutes. Didn't do a damn thing. Uh, and so
That's okay. Neither did anybody else.
but Lowe played in the exhibition game where they didn't play well either and didn't play well. So people are already having doubts about him. And so at some point the injury excuses start falling on deaf ears.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the title of the upcoming schedule here for the SEC. Huge game tomorrow night. The back end of the Jimmy V Classic, the Florida UConn game. And then, I mean, getting Big East here, but UConn getting Texas then on Friday as well.
I
That's
thought
pretty
about
much a
going to that
buy
one,
game
Chad.
for UConn.
I'm actually flying into Hartford for work this weekend, and I'm going to somewhere else so that I'm not close enough to Hartford to make it work. But I was hoping to see Texas UConn in person. I don't think I can make it work, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the other big one here, Indiana, Kentucky this weekend, Griggs. We just talked about this Kentucky team. They really need this win.
Big is relative. Indiana kind of needs it too. They don't need it as bad as
Right.
Kentucky, but Indiana has. We'll get to them when we talk about the Big Ten. But this is sort of you want to talk about a sense of urgency. This is a sense of urgency just to get the string of wins that both these teams needed together started. It's a rather I'm glad the series is back. We're used to seeing it in a much bigger light with much bigger stakes than this. But is this going to be a big game or is it just going to be a pillow fight?
Um, let's jump over to the Big Ten conference here. Uh, Joby, how about the other number one team in the nation, according to the coaches poll, the Michigan Wolverines?
Wow.
They're sitting here now at 8-0. Only one win this week, but they were very
How
convincing over
they're
my Scarlet
doing it,
Knights.
which
Yeah,
I love about Michigan. And
look at
I
these
am
scores.
fine with Arizona taking over, given what Arizona had to go through this past week. But it's how they're doing it. Those games aren't close, and it's Auburn, Gonzaga now, and Chad's team. The but yeah, I mean, they just look so superior to everybody they walk on the court with. I want to say, well, they need to be challenged, but they played Gonzaga, they played Auburn, they've started their Big Ten schedule. So yeah, I mean, this team is just tremendous. How about when Michigan and Michigan State go at it later this year? Is going to be so much fun. Yeah, get that last one, and of course the final game of the year. And it is. I'm already looking forward to it because I'm sure we're going to have some nice positive things to say about little brother too, because little brother did pretty well. Is doing pretty well as well.
In basketball, which one is little brother?
That's a, well, they both won national titles and over 20
They
years
both
ago.
won. They've both been the Final Fours. They're both pretty good. I don't know if there is an alpha in basketball.
Titel.
Because they're both football schools first. I would say Michigan is Big Brother.
A couple other, one other undefeated team here, Nebraska. Maybe we start with them actually. Stalika, Huskers here, also sitting at 9-0, and with some quad two wins at least.
Well, Kansas State, they're a quad two and a name only. Let's just admit it. I think
Yeah.
Oklahoma is one that could just as easily be a quad one if they're able to pull off a win against, let's say, Oklahoma State this weekend. New
Uh,
Mexico also
Creighton could
looked
move
there.
up. Creighton could move up too. Yeah.
Creighton is also one spot above Xavier this year in the net,
Hmm.
which is either damning about Creighton or Xavier may be better than we thought.
Yeah. And Titel, I know you want to discuss a team that's sitting here at 8-1, Penn State, but if you look at this profile, let's kind of compare it to where Penn State's wins have been. Uh,
Yeah.
but how about the 8-1 Nittany Lions though?
I thought it was a football school, Chad, but maybe not.
I
Coach
don't think
Mike
it's much of a
Rhodes only
football
won
school
six.
lately either.
Coach Mike Rhodes only won 16 games in each of his first 2 years in Happy Valley. Right now, it's a very happy valley for basketball. They beat Campbell last week to improve to 8-1, just a neutral site loss to Providence. Schedule gets much tougher this week. They
Yes.
begin conference play at Indiana on Tuesday and then host Sparty on Saturday. And a lot of teams these days look to the transfer portal to bring in older players. The Nittany Lions have succeeded by recruiting younger players. I don't think there's another team in America with three freshman starters each scoring double digits. Caden Mingo from New York, Meli Tunja from Istanbul, Ivan Juric from Croatia, and as they say in Croatian, mi smo Penn State.
Well, don't
Uh,
Titel, you don't have to worry about this weekend because last time I checked, Mendoza and Cooper do not play basketball. So no last second catch of the years to defeat the Nittany Lions on this one.
Hitel's on a roll tonight.
Rocco,
We're
the
learning all kinds
Illini.
of languages.
We mentioned this game a little bit when we talk about the SEC, but how about the Illini this week? Because I thought they were very impressive.
Yeah, they were. I mean, I thought they did an outstanding job defensively, holding Tennessee to 62. In a game that's the kind of game Tennessee wanted, but they really made Tennessee's stars struggle. Jacoby Gillespie goes 3 for 11 from two, 3 for 9 from three for a poor 6 for 20. He had three turnovers. He's supposed to be an all SEC level point guard. The Illinois took him out of the game and well, really didn't made him less efficient, below average game for him by far. Nate Ament, the star Tennessee freshman, also a poor 4 for 14 performance. So those two stars combined went for a 10 for 34 showing, and so that created the space Illinois needed to take control. I thought Tomislav Ivicic, excuse me, him and his brother were both tremendous in this game, combining for 24, making multiple two threes apiece. And they play that whole inside outside game with big guys that can all shoot it. And Stojakovic didn't have his best game in terms of scoring, but he had two block shots and two steals, which contributed to creating offense. And so I thought it was important that Illinois won a game in that type of way instead of just running up and down and getting a high scoring win that they're accustomed to, because they're going to have to win in different ways at the higher echelon of the Big Ten, especially if they want to compete for the trophy.
A couple other teams I think are worth discussing here. Joby, how about heading out west here? UCLA, real nice week for them after they'd been kind of up and down a little bit early on in the season. Win at Washington, knock off Oregon.
I like how you say knock off Oregon. It's supposed to be a nice win. I'm afraid the Ducks are not that, but you know what? Rocco's team, Washington. They've got some fight this year. That is a very good win for UCLA. And UCLA, they did have the loss to Cal right before this week. So let's not get all on the bandwagon yet, though. I think that's more emblematic of Cal being a real team this year. UCLA's finding their footing, but we're going to see this week how much footing they have. If they can win, even good if they can beat Gonzaga and or Arizona State, they should take care of Arizona State. I
Yeah.
know that Arizona State's improving, but that UCLA should win that game. But if they can beat Gonzaga, then we're talking the Sons of Westwood might be making a march in March, but that's a tall order.
Griggs, I think you've been wanting to discuss Indiana. Maybe we discuss them in connection with Minnesota because that was one of the surprising games this week was that Minnesota win over Indiana.
Yeah, and one of the things about it kind of makes you take a second look at Indiana, and if you pull it up here,
Indiana.
um, it was really easy early in the year to see what they did against Marquette and be impressed by that. Marquette is not impressive at all. Kansas State also very much not impressive. They had the game against Louisville recently, which I guess the best thing you could say about it is that they rallied to cut it to single digits after being behind 16 to nothing and never really getting any closer than that. And then they go to the barn and lose. Now Minnesota, I don't nothing about this screams tournament team. They're like, what have they done that's impressive? When have they looked impressive? And when you look at it again, what you thought was a good Marquette team really wasn't.
Right. Well, but maybe a little bit needs to be discussed, Rocco. Rocco, this Minnesota team, you know, maybe there's a little life here. I don't know. That they've got four losses, but when you look at the names of those losses, they're not that bad.
Yeah, I mean it's been a little bit of a struggle. Like I thought they came out the first couple of weeks of the season, despite the Missouri loss, and looked dominant. Obviously playing bad teams at home, and then of course struggling with Green Bay was not a good look. Uh, but now I think, I was actually extra surprised by this Indiana win because right before tip-off, Chauncey Willis, their starting point guard, is announced out for the season. Robert Vejola, the transfer from here, San Jose State, is an awesome big man, really fun to watch, but he's always hurt. He's been out now. So they have two key injuries, and I know for obviously Willis is for sure long term, and he's done. I love Nico Medved's offense. They run really good stuff. They're going to be able to continue to pull off a few upsets, I think, throughout the year. But I just think they're going to have a really tough time generating any consistency, especially with the injuries now. And the
Listen,
Barnes a naturally tough place to win, I
Yeah, it
should
is.
add. Yeah.
quick look at the
Minnesota's had years where they couldn't win there. It's been
upcoming schedule here, Salika. There's a lot of good games because we do have a lot of conference play in here, intermixed with games like the UCLA Gonzaga and the Iowa State game and the like.
I feel like Illinois is going to have a bit of a trap game at Ohio State. The
Hmm.
Buckeyes seem to have been running hot and cold. Now, granted, losing at Pitt, really not a good look for the Buckeyes when you consider what Pitt's been doing of late. Now, they
would
should
not
have a
do.
chance with revenge against West Virginia on their minds, but also hosting Nebraska, that's not going to be an easy one for the Illini either.
That's a big game Saturday, that Nebraska Illinois game, believe it or not.
I think it is.
Both
Yeah.
both Nebraska games are huge this week.
Yeah, they really are. Big game, big week for Nebraska with Wisconsin on Wednesday night as well there. Jump over to the Big East here, maybe. Look at the top of those standings. Seton Hall on the top of the Big East standings, Joby. Who would have thunk it?
And they actually have a scalp, mixed in
Yeah.
on that. Yeah, it's not like it's all, cupcakes. I mean, yeah, the win over NC State obviously is going to, I think, is going to age really well. And the only law, I mean, Kansas State, at least is on the road though. So Griggs would say that they are 1-0. Um, and I don't know if Kansas State's going to age as well. And USC, we didn't talk about in the Big Ten. They're good.
They are good, and
They're good.
Seton Hall was right in there. And you
So
say who would have thunk it? This was a team that was so bad that we were talking about, like, if they played in the Metro Atlantic, would they even finish in the top half of it? I think they're one of the biggest surprises of the year.
I agree. And now look at I'm not now because some of those are away. We don't know how it was. Just look at that next schedule. I think Seton Hall right now is a better team than all six until they get to UConn. Is better than I'm not saying they win all six, but they're a better team than all six of those teams. Villanova's okay, but I think they are clearly better than the other five, at least of how those five have played, like Creighton. And so, who knows? We could be sitting with a 15-1 Seton Hall going, hosting on January 13th number 5 UConn. What a great game that'll be if that were to come to pass.
Well, the
Briggs,
guy
you
gets
mentioned the Metro Atlantic. Who was the head coach the last time, or when St. Peter's went to the
It was
Elite
Rashid
Eight?
Holloway. Yeah.
Shaheen.
Yeah.
Um, he mentioned that Villanova team,
Or
though.
Shaheen, sorry.
Titel. I don't think that should be a given, though. This Villanova team has, maybe they haven't played anybody, but they've looked a lot better this year than they had before.
And they have played the 217th best team in the net, but I understand.
Mhm.
New coach Kevin Willard lost his Villanova debut by 5 to BYU on opening night. Since then, 7 wins in a row, a 27-point butt kicking of Mike Wakers last Saturday, which I'm sure served as very good preparation for his next game when he heads to Michigan on Tuesday. I expect the Wolverines to hoist a ton of threes since the Wildcats are allowing teams to shoot 43% behind the arc, second worst in the country. I really thought they were going to regress this year after Eric Dixon graduated, the leading scorer in the history of the program. But freshman point guard Caden Lewis from DC has been better than advertised, 13 points and 6 assists a game. GCU transfer Duke Brennan, the best rebounder in the country, almost 13 a game. And Penn Trader, transfer Tyler Perkins, almost doubled his scoring average from last year, despite playing fewer minutes this year.
There you go. Rocco, UConn had a big week. They pounded East Texas A&M, and oh yeah, they also won at Kansas.
Yes, they did. Very impressive win over the Lions at home on Friday night. It created a great weekend for UConn.
Show off.
Do they have a football coach yet? Anyway, I don't know, but
They're playing Army in the Fenway Bowl coming up. Here we go.
can't wait. But yeah, the Kansas road win, obviously big time. Not very rare for a non-conference team to go in there and win at the Fog, let alone, Kansas is playing pretty well this year. So that's going to age extremely well, I think, over time. Of course, Kansas still playing without Peterson, but still they've proven without him they can beat good teams. And it was an ugly game, 61-56. But I thought the both the freshmen really stood out in that game. Braylon Mullins off the bench had 17, and then the big German 7-1, Eric Reiby. I thought he did a little bit of everything: 8 rebounds, 2 blocks, 2 steals. Really key and frustrating the Kansas attack. And so those are the little things you look for in winning games late and winning close games. We already know about the talents of Solo Ball and Alex Caravan. So these glue guys and these role players and even the young guys, really important for UConn's future in terms of going deep into the tournament, which is obviously everybody's goal out in our buddy Zach's area of the country. So yeah, kudos to UConn and clearly the favorite in this conference.
Yeah, and there's one other game we want to discuss from this week, and it is not DePaul's thrilling comeback to knock off Arkansas Pine Bluff. It was Salika, floor is yours. Xavier's win over Cincinnati. What a game, actually.
I thought for a moment you're going to be leading into Providence beating Rhode Island, which would have been the Ocean State semifinal. But yes, the Musketeers, after having a 5-game winning streak against UC interrupted last year, it was pretty much an evenly played game for the first half. Xavier jumped out to a 12-point lead at the beginning of the second half. They managed to withstand a late run by UC, but Trey Carroll became the fourth Xavier player to score more than 30 points in a shootout, and he joins legends like Jack Nungy, Trayvon Blewett, and if you saw some of the post-game coverage from TNT, can they hook him up with a nice Minute Maid deal, particularly their pink lemonade?
There we go. All right. Quick look at the upcoming schedule here. We mentioned a lot of these important games already when discussing some of the other conferences. I think one other, though, that I am going to highlight here, Griggs.
Oh,
Tuesday
yes.
night, Brown at Providence. Over the past week, Providence beat Rhode Island. Brown beat Bryant. This is the Ocean State Tournament Championship game coming up tomorrow night.
Yes.
So if you watch any of these games, watch that one.
Right.
Or maybe some of the other better ones, but like
yeah,
Texas UConn. But.
Brown. The last time we had an Ocean State tournament that we highlighted, the season ended in COVID, so hopefully that doesn't repeat itself. But
Brown was the champion that year.
Brown was the champion. That was so. For those of you that may not have been with us back then, this thing got so much legs that there were things on Twitter. Yeah, why don't other states do this? The states, Rhode Island doesn't do this. We just made it up.
Also throughout their Saturday, Iona St. John's, a little Rick Pitino game there also. So
Yeah, well, that's a fun one.
uh,
Yeah,
coming up here, let's go over to the West Coast Conference. There's a couple teams worth mentioning, maybe not in too much depth. But first of all, Gonzaga did have a 2-0 week,
yeah.
taking care of Kentucky and then beating North Florida. Uh, Greg, you have some thoughts on them? Or
Well, I mean, I really like them. I know that they got blown into the sun by Michigan, but I mean that I think that was just I think that says more about Michigan, and I think Gonzaga's had better games than that. Some of the teams that I thought would chase them have proven to be kind of disappointing. Although St. Mary's still pretty good, no shame in losing at Vanderbilt.
well,
When
St. Mary's went cross country this week. Let me
yeah,
ask somebody else about this. Rocco, win at Davidson, and the fact that it was a cross country trip, that's why
it was a good win.
I give them a lot of extra credit for that win.
Yeah, they did, and obviously the Steph Curry connection made that all come together. But I think Joshua Dent really showed up in that game. That's a young sophomore they're teetering with to see if he's ready to take over point guard duties. 5 assists, 21 points, 8 of 9 from the field. What a game he had! And we already know kind of what the glue guys can do with Moraskis and Mikey Lewis and the like. So good improvement there for one of their core young guys that they'll have to lean on later in WCC play. And obviously any road game, it's the only road game they play in non-conference. But now they'll go to Idaho Falls in what's basically a road game to try to finally beat Boise State up there. It's the third straight year they've played up there in Idaho Falls against Boise, losing the last two in the final minute. And stubborn Randy Bennett, our favorite, the future Hall of Famer, he will keep going back till he beats them. So let's see if he can get it done this Sunday.
Titel, was it a couple of teams worth discussing? San Francisco, we thought was going to be in the conversation this year. They lose a home game to North Alabama, go to Tupelo, Mississippi, and beat Mississippi State. But I think maybe more so the team worth discussing here is maybe the Seattle team.
I'm still recovering from the Randy Bennett as a future Hall of Famer thing. He might be Rocco. He might be.
If he's not, then we need new voters.
So Seattle coach Chris Victor lost 18 games last year in the WAC because he's not a Hall of Famer. But as we all know,
Yeah.
he can work wonders on a program because the Red Hawks are now 7-2. The two losses by a combined 5 points. Another cupcake this weekend, and if they can win a tough game at UC Davis on Saturday, they could be 9-2 when playing your Huskies in Seattle on December 19th. 3-point shooting's been the key. 41% behind the arc is eighth best in the country, and the star of the show has been Braden Maldonado. He's not the best player to ever come out of Alaska. We've seen Carlos Boozer from Juneau, Trajan Langdon from Anchorage, both McDonald's All-Americans, both went to Duke, both played in NCAA championship games. But Maldonado is scoring 18 points a game, shooting 51% behind the arc, and 36 of 37 at the free throw line.
He went
There we
off.
go. Okay. Here's the upcoming schedule for the week. The
Yeah.
key games are the Gonzaga UCLA and the St. Mary's Boise State game. Maybe the San Francisco St. Louis game.
I
But with
Yeah,
the
and
Dons on the down.
oof.
I think the other important note is Santa Clara was tracking really well. Jake Ensminger went down against Minnesota, I believe it was, and he missed both games last week. It's a huge loss for the Broncos, of course, going to New Mexico and getting
Oh
pounded
my
without him.
God.
And I'm not sure when he's going to come back. And now the Broncos have more key games coming up. Arizona State's starting to trend as their annual bubble flirtation, and they got to play them on a neutral court on Saturday. So really, Broncos got to really gear up and try to win it as a shorthanded group this Saturday.
Yeah,
I'm
I've
gonna,
been
I'm
big
gonna,
on Santa Clara,
yeah,
but that injury was a lot. I mean, they just did not look good at all without him.
yeah. I got to turn the
Correct.
floor over to Mr. Fortson now because we're going to go to his favorite conference. Joby, it's all yours. Take it away.
Wait a minute. Speaking of Hall of Fame coaches, along with Randy Bennett, there definitely is one in this conference. But I'll let
Hold
you
on a second,
continue.
Griggs. Joby, you're on mute.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I actually, hey, I have to admit they had a decent week. I like Nevada's win over UCSD. I really like Colorado State's win over Colorado because I actually think Colorado's a good team. And last week. We talked about, hey, Stanford's not half bad, and then UNLV, who's been
Awful.
awful this year, just awful, goes in and beats them. Yeah. Now Utah State, we were all saying, hey, it's a one bid league, and Utah State's it. Bad loss, man. Bad
Oh,
loss.
but they bounced back with a Charlotte win. It's another
Yeah.
cross-country
Way
trip.
to go. Way to beat what's Charlotte 300th in the JNG? I mean,
Pretty bad.
I mean, but it's on the road, so it looks really good in the metrics. Way to go off with the net. But and we talk about New Mexico, Santa Clara. It was a very good week for the Mountain West. Boise obviously beat Butler, who has been on fire this year. So is Boise erasing, and they'll get their opportunity as we just discussed in the prior conference. Is Boise trying to erase the embarrassment of that non-Division One loss? Um, that being said, this conference still has a long way to go. It was a good week, but I think the cake is baked that they just don't have the inflated nets because of their performance that they usually have. And I'm not saying, oh, definitively one bid or et cetera. As a matter of fact, that Colorado State win puts them, I think, in a discussion eventually if they can do well in conference. But this will not be a 4 or 5. The pattern over the last few years has been the Mountain West has had about 4 or 5 teams in that, or six even, in that 11 or 10 or 11 seed through high NIT. That's not happening this year. The whole thing is shifted towards more NIT teams with maybe a couple squeezing in on the 10 or 11 side as opposed to 4. And so that's what I think we're looking at. But it is more weeks like this will change the narrative and improve their outlook.
Yeah, well, I mean, we
Except
can't.
nowadays it wouldn't be the NIT, it would be the Crown because I think
Hmm,
they're one of the conferences tied into that.
Very
yeah.
good. Thank you,
Okay.
John.
Yeah. I mean, San Diego State might still bounce back here. Utah State obviously has a great number so far. Titel, how about this Colorado State team off of that Colorado win?
So I think a lot of people keep forgetting last March, this team was a Derek Queen buzzer beater away from making the Sweet 16 under former coach Nico Medved. But the new
I
coach, Alex
had
Rupinesh,
forgotten that.
he's looking pretty good. The Rams have 3 straight top 100 wins: Wichita, South Florida, Colorado, 2 cupcakes this week, and then the huge conference opener when they head to Utah State on December 20th. If you don't guard the perimeter, this team will light you up from the 3-point line. 46% is number one in the nation. If you get too physical and foul them, they'll light you up at the free throw line. 81% is number 8 in the nation. And one of the key transfers, Josh Pasquarelli from Marist. He was all Metro Atlantic first team last year at Marist. He might be all Mountain West first team this year, scoring 16 points a game, shooting 53% behind the arc.
There's our second 3-point shooting 53% guy that's of the night. That's some numbers there. But we're running a little low here on time here. So, but Rocco, any last thoughts on the conference before we jump on?
Yeah, well, UNLV 7-footer Emmanuel Steffen made his debut. I was at the game against Stanford yesterday. It's a much different team with him in the lineup. He was assertive and really the best player on the floor yesterday. And they're still not without their point guard Miles Che, who was a terrific player for Irvine last year. When this team starts Mountain West play, they do expect Che to return by December 20th. The openers against Fresno. I think UNLV will be a factor in the race, despite those 5 losses they already have, and that's exciting for the league, except for they might be the team that ruins everybody's resumes.
A couple games of note this week: the Boise State St. Mary's game we already mentioned. Also, New Mexico at VCU. Keep an eye
That's
on
a
that
good
one
one.
Wednesday
That's a
night.
real good one. Yeah.
Uh, Sleeka, let me go to you and jump over to the A10 conference here because I'm starting to think we may finally have a multi-bid A10 this year. Like
Yeah,
two
in this
bid,
case,
like 2-bid A10.
well, we thought George Mason might have been one of those multiple bids.
Oh,
Now, they did take a slight hit with their loss at Virginia Tech. However, you do have teams like St. Louis and GW who are still in the top 50 of the net right there. GW is a team that we'll get to a little bit later. They do have a shot to get a signature win against Florida this upcoming Saturday. You look at a team like St. Louis, they look real good, pounding Loyola Marymount on the road and also following that up with a blowout at home against Central Michigan.
Yeah, I keep. I think it's the third or fourth week in a row, Griggs. I've said that St. Louis. I'm just impressed with them this season, and they've always let me down in the past.
Yeah, I really like them. If you want to kind of pull up their profile now, we have a lot of bloated records in this league, but some of them are bloated because of weak schedules. St. Louis's is actually pretty good. The neutral court win against a full strength Santa Clara team is really good. They were right in there with Stanford, who at the time that felt like a bad loss, but Stanford actually has some signs of life. I think that win at LMU is a really good win too. So, you got San Francisco coming up. That's a very winnable game. The one thing that I like them. I think they're building a tournament quality resume. The one thing about this league is that, with the exception of Dayton, there just aren't a lot of teams getting a lot of opportunities. And with Dayton, while they did have the nice win against Georgetown and have battled, they kind of missed a really big chance against Virginia in their last game.
Yeah,
They
they
missed
did.
it. Someone who watched that game, they missed it badly.
Yeah, they missed it badly. It was,
Don't let that 13-point margin fool you. It was sitting at 20 for most of the game.
yeah.
Uh, Tytel, the Bonnies are another team that
Oh,
are
yeah.
putting together a very strong record and not an ugly resume either.
Well, the bad news is Coach Mark Schmidt only has one top 25 team on his schedule. He played Carolina, neutral site, lost by 15. Good news, they've beaten everybody else so far. They welcome Colgate to town on Wednesday, two cupcakes after that. Should be 12-1 when they head to VCU on New Year's Eve. If they win that one, then they have to be considered a strong contender to win the A10. The transfer portal allows you to find players of all shapes and sizes. Their two top scorers are on opposite ends of the weight spectrum. 160-pound guard Daryl Simmons II from Gardner Webb and 270-pound big man Frank Mitchell from Minnesota, both scoring 15 points a game.
There we go. Rocco, nice week for Richmond as well.
Yeah, Richmond, super impressive. Snapped Belmont's undefeated season
That's a
in
great win.
in Belmont. Obviously set the tone for a great week. They finished the week by beating their local rival, Old Dominion, at home. But in that Belmont win, they really made a move late in the second half. Will Johnson banked in a three, the former LMU Lion, and Mike Walls only scored 3 points, but one of them, all 3 points were on a half court heave from about 60 feet that went in as well. So a little bit of luck for the Spiders in this game. Obviously, that changed a lot at halftime to be the difference between being, I think they were going to be down nine, and that made it a 6 point game at half, and then building off that and playing much better in the second half to beat Belmont. Great sign for Richmond and a great sign for the meat of the A10. Again, this is kind of where the rubber meets the road for the conference. If Davidson, Rhode Island, Richmond, though Duquesne, that level of team can step up, and a lot of them are. Richmond now with a top 75 strength of resume. George Washington, VCU Dayton, George Mason, St. Louis, St. Bonaventure, and Davidson. They're all in the top 83 of that metric right now, and that's a much better year at this juncture than we've seen in probably the last 5 years.
I agree completely here. Upcoming schedule here for the conference. We mentioned that New Mexico VCU game. We mentioned that St. Louis game against San Francisco. Tytel, you said the Bonnies had a cupcake with Ohio. I would not quite overlook that as being a full cupcake game. That the Ohio team might have a little bit of life in that one also.
It's like a
Three
Jolly
and six
Rancher.
Bobcats, you say, Chad.
I'm saying that I think they're better than the record.
Okay.
Uh, Anyhow, what's left here? Well, technically, for the moment at least, the American Conference is still on this show. I don't know if it should be or not, but Joby, uh, the Golden Hurricane are the only reason why this conference has not been relegated down to under the radar yet, I think.
Yeah, and while it's not like we have to look at the resume for Tulsa and say, "Oh, it's amazing," they do. Hey, they have an A10. We did legitimately discuss the A10, and they beat Rhode Island. And likewise,
The
I
Northern
like
Iowa
Northern
win.
Iowa. I like the Northern Iowa win. They could win the MVC, and I think Austin P is probably the best team in the OVC. And so, that's not bad. I'm not saying Tulsa, and the J&G right now says Tulsa's inside the bubble, I might add. I don't think that continues.
I gotta tell you, I do agree that Austin P is the best team in the OVC, but they don't play in the OVC. But they would be the best team if they
Oh,
played.
they
They're in the
yeah,
A Sun
right.
these
The
days.
A-Sun, they're the best team in the A-Sun. I'm not sure why I say that. Yeah.
They
Tennessee
would be the
Martin.
best team in the
Sorry.
OVC, though.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Tennessee Martin. Sorry. Yeah, it's in that category for the OVC. But yeah, it's not a bad resume. It's solid. The nice 8-1 record, is good to look at, but they're going to have to maintain a gaudy record really to be at large worthy, including getting wins over other strong net conference games. Like they're gonna have to win. They can't lose to Wichita State because besides that, look at that. The conference just isn't delivering with Memphis's fall this year.
Yeah, Memphis did get that nice one we mentioned over Baylor, but they've still got a
And
long way to go. I'll pull that profile up real quick. There's some bad stuff on there still.
Yeah.
And
The
this is a big week for
opportunities there.
Memphis at Louisville, home to Vanderbilt. They go 2-0. We're talking Memphis at the top of the show next week.
We really are. They've won 3 in a row. Have they started to right the ship yet?
Perhaps, and
They also go to Utah State on Valentine's Day. Don't forget.
there we go down there. And Rocco, Wichita State, a little bit of a bounce back as well.
Yeah.
Again, another team that beat Northern Iowa.
Yeah, they go and beat Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls. That's a big time road win. Honestly, I mean Northern
Yeah.
Iowa was top 3 under the radar team, so that's a hard win. They got it done in overtime. So I mean it's a good sign that the Shockers are making progress. I think they're pretty much out of opportunities just with a DePaul home game left, but at least improvement across the league. I also think South Florida just totally tattooed a really good Utah State team. The final score was 13, but they had a huge lead most of the day. And South Florida is extremely dangerous still, despite the 5-4 record. So I thought overall it was a pretty good week for the league. You had great wins from Wichita State, Memphis, South Florida, and then Tulsa's continuing to trend. So overall, at least the top of the league's starting to hold their own.
Well, South Florida has one more test if they want to get in the at-large picture. They have to win it. I don't think they can. It's at Alabama next week, but
Never know.
Well-
Those guys are good friends, so they might have a good game plan.
Well, they did have Georgia on their schedule. The only problem is it's Georgia College.
uh, rest of the upcoming schedule here in the conference for this week here. Got not too much to circle. Other than that Memphis Louisville game, I think.
Yeah.
But let's run to final thoughts here. And Titel, since I got the screen share up, I'm going to start with you.
So I mentioned the #1 Arizona Wildcats earlier, and there's a lot of former players finding success elsewhere after transferring, and there's a lot of reasons that it took them some time to get back to the top of the mountain, but talent wasn't one of them. As you see, several former players having success elsewhere. On the upper left, Filip Borovichinin is the starting power forward for Xavier. He had 12 points in their win over Cincinnati last Friday. Kylan Boswell, starting point guard at Illinois, had 15 points in their win over Tennessee last Saturday. On the upper right, you see Henry Vesar, the starting center for Carolina, 18 and 15 in the win over Georgetown yesterday. Conrad Martinez is the top sub off the bench for an 8-2 high point squad. He's scoring 10 points a game, shooting over 90% at the free throw line. On the bottom left, Kirk Kriisa, the starting point guard of Cincinnati, had 20 points in their win over Tarleton State last week. In the middle, KJ Lewis, the starting shooting guard for Georgetown, leading the Big East with over 2.5 steals a game. And last but certainly not least, in the lower right, Paulius Morauskas, the starting power forward for St. Mary's, leading the conference with 18 points a game. My point, I'm very happy that my Wildcats are #1, and I'm very happy that Tommy Lloyd is a great recruiter because look at all this talent he brought in. But even after losing it, he still brought in enough freshmen and transfers and developed the guys he had to make us #1.
There you go, #1 team. Let's run over to Rocco next.
Yeah, Chad, I just first want to give a shout out to the Washington Huskies. Tough loss to UCLA to start the week. A game just got way too big of a hole. Rallied really fiercely at the end to only lose by a basket. But then went to USC and fell into another deep hole, down by 18 in the first half. And man, the group texts were not pretty. I'll just say that. And a crazy, crazy turnaround down in La La Land as Washington outscored USC by nearly 30, I believe, in the second half to steal that win. Hans Steinbach back healthy just in time for Big Ten action. Obviously, a massive needle mover. In fact, too big of a needle mover because now he's on everybody's list for the lottery in the draft. So we'll enjoy Hans for 3 more months and then he'll be gone. But Washington actually with the pulse now with that road USC win, the first team to knock off the Trojans. So a shout out there, Danny Sprinkle. And the powers that be spent a ton of money on this roster. So just hoping they can at least put up a fight for 3 more months.
All right. Stalika.
I know we've had some fun with some, shall we say, conferences that have been formed up here out of thin air. We haven't mentioned the old Southwest Conference. We've mentioned a team like Houston, which was one of the preseason favorites to win the national title. You look at a couple teams that are towards the bottom. Rice, you would kind of expect. Texas would probably be second from the bottom if you saw what they did or did not do against Virginia. But you look beyond that, could SMU actually be fighting Texas Tech for potential second place in the Southwest Conference? Although Arkansas may also have a thing to say about that.
Yeah, I think they would. Uh,
God, I miss the old Southwest. Oh,
Joby.
rivalries.
Yeah, and Baylor is a forgotten entity. Your former, just not long ago, national champion. So that's saying something. Well, I'm going to focus in the SEC. The leaders in the J&G right now in the SEC and the leaders on most statistics is Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt has been a story. And mirrors what's happening also on the gridiron and I am fully expect when the Heisman gets announced that sitting on the stage will be Diego Pavia, even though he probably won't win it. Mendoza will. Well, Vanderbilt might have a star of their own on the basketball court with Duke Miles, and Duke Miles became the first Commodore in several years to win SEC Player of the Week when he won as the Commodores cruised through the Battle of Atlantis. So you see this one of the best seasons, probably the best season in a century practically for Vanderbilt in football. Are we going to see something similar on the basketball side? And that shows not just, Vanderbilt has this magic season, but what NIL can do. NIL is a factor in both of these. Pavia was a transfer over from New Mexico, and Miles was a transfer over from Oklahoma. And by the way, had 3 stops in the transfer portal on the way. I know Virginia was one of them. But it really shows that if you have dedicated boosters, if you have the money to do it, you can make a difference and create a team that isn't normally, at the top of the SEC. Not an easy conference to be the top at in either football or basketball. You can see what can be done. And so, my hat is off to Vanderbilt. I hope that their magical season continues for their fans' sake because it's been a long time. But it also is a very good reflection of the actual landscape that college sports is as we face it.
Of course, it also helps when you're flipping a 5-star quarterback from Georgia to Vandy. That must have been a feather in their cap.
Greg, do you want to finish off the show?
Yeah, so we're coming off. I think the first Saturday in December is one of the gems on the college sports calendar. Probably not as big of a gem as the first and second day of the NCAA tournament or the round of 64, but you have the conference championship games in football, and you tend to have an amazing slate of college basketball with a lot of really, I mean, Saturdays generally give you a good slate, and the conference games are good, but you get unique matchups in that first Saturday in December. It's the last really big weekend before break. And a lot of people want to get those big games in before the students come on. But that's followed by an absolute lull in games because of final exams. For instance, tonight we have cartoon football on ESPN. I don't even know what I'm watching. And but I'm not even kidding. Turn it on. It's a cartoon football game. And it just brings me, and I say this every year, Chad, and why do we have to have final exams? I never understood what academics had to do with college basketball and why we have to have this constant interruption.
Okay, everybody. You know what, Griggs? Another year or two that may be true, but for
God.
now,
Oh, God, you might be right.
for now, I do want to thank everyone for joining us.
What
We're
have I
back
done?
Wednesday night with our Under the Radar show. Back next Monday with another HoopsHD Report. But on behalf of John Titel, John Salika, Rocco Miller, check them out at bracketeer.org. Joby Fortson, David Griggs. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again real soon.